Welcome back to the Dynasty Dingers podcast. We are recording on Monday, August 12th. For you new listeners, Dynasty Dingers is a Scout the Stat Line podcast. If you are a member, we thank you. If you are not yet a member, make sure you pop over to scoutthestatline.com, where you can find all of our prospect models, weekly and monthly articles covering prospects, major leaguers, trades, drafts, any and all things baseball. On today's show, Doc and I are going to break down the great debate. Since it's political season, the debate will basically be, is Wyatt Langford overrated or is it too early? We will move into a little draft conversation that we are working on in a 30-man, as well as kind of breaking down some of the breakouts from this season and identifying if we have enough of a sample size and what we should expect from those players long term. But before we get rolling, Doc, what's going on, brother?
Feeling good, man. Just back from Canada. Is this our first podcast back?
It is, and that was also the first time I read our intro. I will do better, but I think it's okay.
That's all right, man. I think you did pretty well for yourself. You got no beard now. What happened?
Yeah, I like nuzzling the baby, which is I don't know. It's just what I'm doing right now. I got a new kid, and the beard I felt bad. I was like it's kind of scratchy, so I shaved it.
Yeah. Other than that, man, I'm glad to be back in the U.S. of A. I didn't even really plan this one out, but yeah, I'm back in America.
How was the camping trip?
Camping trip was cool. I was up in Northern Ontario. Any Canadian listeners probably know Muskoka area, Magnetawan. It's very specific. Anyway, it was great just getting out there. There's more bears and wolves up there, but we didn't deal with any. And it's like kind of tricky. You don't have the guns, right? So it's kind of when you sleep with a revolver under your pillow. So now I'm losing the Canadians. Like, you crazy. So I had to have bear spray. I'm over here. I'm like, yeah, I guess we'll see how that goes. It's like,
so
if the bear really wants to get me, I don't know if it's going to stop him.
I know gun rights are a little different in Canada, but they're so different that you can't bring a protective weapon with you hunting or camping.
So don't quote me on the full legalities, but I believe handguns are essentially never at any point completely illegal.
Okay.
Which is funny because that's considered like the most baseline thing here. They're worried about the rifles down in America, and then up in Canada, the only thing you can really do, I believe, is they've narrowed it down to more or less some shotguns and some single shot rifles, and you can't have the ammunition together. It's basically for hunting. And
okay.
I don't even know what would happen. Like I feel like they might get mad at you if you shoot the wrong bear at the wrong time. Like even if that's
well, they do that here as well.
Okay, yeah, I have no idea. But anyway, it was good, man. No, none of that nonsense. And my baby handled it nicely, so she wasn't freaking out in the middle of the night. I had a great time, family and friends.
And you're starting her early, so she should take to camping better than most kids.
We took her to Daniel Boone National Forest when she was several weeks old. Like, it was kind of a ridiculous thing to do. Like she was maybe a month or two.
Was it a pre-planned trip, or was it just one of those things where you guys had been in the house and you're like, let's get out?
Something like that. Yeah, I was like, let's take her out overnight, and it's kind of insane thinking about it now. Yeah.
That's kind of cool though. I support it as a new parent. I think a lot of people are too scared to do things as a parent, and like it's not like you strolled her into a dirty supermarket and put her in a cart. Like took her to a national forest. Can't get too many germs there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, should we break right into it?
I think we should do some baseball. Some folks they love our little.
Yeah, they could care less about
some folks
the damn woods.
Some folks, hey, we touched on somewhat of a political issue, some gun talk.
Yeah.
So now we're gonna get way more offensive, way more controversial here. You already offended half of X.
Yes, I did.
With your post. Wow, how about you tell the folks what you posted?
So this has been a feeling for me for quite a while, and I'll tell you where it stems from. And this is for the listener too. In my home league, my most important league, Doc, you know how that feels, right? The home league is always at its core the most important. I had targeted Wyatt Langford this offseason. I didn't get him. There was some shenanigans that he was kept away from me in certain parameters, so I was a little salty. So naturally, I during ranking season had ranked highly of Wyatt Langford because of what he did in the minor leagues last year and collegiate career as well. A lot of people did as well, right? We all had Wyatt Langford top 3 at least. A lot of people had him top 1. So I went into the season having high expectations, but still being a little salty. So when he never really broke out this year, I held him to a higher standard because we had him ranked so highly, and that bitterness on my end was amplified. So this past, well, I guess yesterday or the day before, I just posted flat out that I feel like he was a complete letdown and that we overrated him, that I was disgusted in myself for falling into group think by ranking him so high, which that part might have been a little bit of an overreaction because his numbers did deserve a big bump. And I think he will probably be one of the last players that we really allow such a great start to really impact our judgment on rankings. I think of Christian Moore this year as somebody that could very well be a first overall ranked player if we allowed that thought to continue with how he has started. And that shouldn't be the case. So yeah, I posted that I'm disappointed. And lastly, that I would rather roster right now Jordan Walker than Wyatt Langford.
Yeah, man. I mean, I thought you were joking. I thought I was waiting for like the punchline. It sounded like you were doing a satire. And so I got to the bottom and I was like, oh no. Well, this is, well, okay. Well, now we have something to talk about today. Yeah, I mean, for me, we have to look at this situation. I got someone for just without getting fully into Victor Scott, which we won't really the rest of the episode. We'll save other guys for that. But Victor Scott, BS2, my boy, showing some signs of life, right? So I put him as like, he's only 3% owned in Yahoo leagues. We're not at the point of, we're not at the peak hype anymore. We're now at like a buy super low. Like he's just still kicking around in fairly competitive leagues, redrafts, and maybe even otherwise. But yeah, it's like, this guy came into the comments, the replies on the Scout the Stat Line. He said, "Oh, he's not an MLB player. He's not an MLB player in my eyes." And I'm like, well, I mean, can people change? I mean, this guy Scott changed from like basically static, holding the bat like this, standing and not moving, to like this whole different thing. He's moving. He's doing. He's got all kinds of things happening, and it's not like he just did that and it's the same results. He had 3 home runs in his week. Yep. Before the promotion, which I actually kind of missed. I didn't even notice. I heard he was doing good. I'm like, that's good enough for me. He isn't doing anything good, and then I'm happy. And now he's up here. He's already hit his first major league home run. One thing he's not doing is stealing bases. But anyway, the whole thing is, so you're telling me like because of a guy who had 66 games at AA, was thrown into the fire of the big leagues, struggled his first time. You're done with him? He's trash heap to you? Dude, Jackson Holiday is a pure hitter. Victor Scott is not a pure hitter. Like, if he can hit anywhere like above 200, basically, he could be a pretty cool fantasy toy. But Jackson Holiday literally has the floor of has the ceiling of a 300 hitter. So he's got very pure hitting ability, and he struggled mightily with more seasoning. He was at AAA before his call-up, so he had more seasoning than Victor Scott, and he struggled just as much. Where nobody should have been throwing him out. And so this is all coming around to say that Wyatt Langford, he got to struggle. If he went down to the big leagues, he probably would have been cracking 400 average, 500 OBP again, something silly. But he's gotten by as a guy who isn't blowing your mind, but he has these pockets, these weeks of really, really great performance. We think the breakout's happening, and then it just something else pops up. A bit of a tangent here, but. So I'll let you counterpunch, but I just think basically if he had gone down and come back up, you maybe would have seen some, more linear numbers. More, I don't know if that's the best word for it. More consistent.
No, numbers. I think he would have dominated. I think you're right. But I'm gonna read you what I had on Twitter as my synopsis, because we're gonna get into some numbers here just to really highlight where Langford is in comparison to some of the names that we've talked about all year. But the final takeaway for me was that his numbers are showing that he could be a 30 to 40 overall outfielder, right? 30th ranked, 40th ranked throughout his career. I think there's possibility for him to be top 15 if he can hit the ball harder. My biggest takeaway, my biggest frustration here, Doc, is that there was so much excitement. There was so much hype for a guy that only had a third of a season in the minor leagues that he was vaulted to 1-1 in FYPD drafts. And my takeaway is I'm looking for Hall of Fame talent in that 1-1 position, because in a 10-year window, 3 to 4 major league players a year make the Hall of Fame. That would mean there could be 3 to 4 Hall of Famers in FYPDs. Now, that's an average, right? Some could have 6, some could have 0. But if I'm drafting 1-1, I want a franchise dynasty altering talent. And with the numbers that we're about to talk about, Langford is not that. We have players that are 3 years younger, I guess 2.5 years younger, performing better in almost all categories than him. He is the oldest out of the group of players we're going to talk about, and he ranks, if you were to put all of these numbers into an average, last overall amongst all of them. And that's what frustrates me. You invested in him in a number of drafts, won one. I invested in him as well in certain places. And I think for me, that frustration, what it's going to do is it's just going to steer me in a different direction in FYPD drafts moving forward, because I got burned and I'm really upset by it, because this is the first time I've really had to fall into the, hey, I made a mistake because of groupthink. I didn't let my own scouting analysis affect things. Before we get into the numbers, did you want to rebuttal at all?
Yeah, if you're thinking in Dynasty terms, here's the deal. If you have the 1.1 in Dynasty, you're probably not in a great position. In one league, I've done a nice immediate rebuild, completely overhaul of that 30-teamer that I got him in. Kind of 100% an absentee owner. There was literally a dead prospect on the team. Rest in peace. I was like, man,
I remember that. That's right.
Yeah, like rest in peace, but also it's kind of funny. Sorry, but otherwise, like, and then of course, if you traded for someone's pick, which was another situation for me. Other than that, if you were 1.1. I guess that would be where you'd be the most frustrated, actually. If you are a competitive team who acquired the 1.1 via trade, assuming that Langford would come in and be, as you said, Hall of Famer, or even just a star or superstar, whatever, right off the bat, then yeah, I could understand why you'd be disappointed. But baseball is so oversaid. It's a cliche. Baseball is hard. Hashtag baseball is hard. And we're seeing that. We're going to keep seeing that. You look at guys who are hitting the ball really hard now, weren't always doing that at the beginning of their career. And sometimes guys who are hitting the ball hard, so some guys who hit the ball hard now were not doing it when they started. Some guys who are just starting and already hitting the ball hard, I'm thinking of a guy like Ben Rice, who's hitting the ball very hard. His savant, look at Ben Rice's savant page. It's crazy good.
Lawrence Butler as well. Same profile you're talking about. Just there's no consistency, I think, is what you're getting to, right?
Yes. Well, I'll say. I guess I'll let you go into the numbers, but my first thing would just be to look out for. You're going to talk about EVs, and his bat speed's electric, but his EVs are not where you think they would be. I would point you to. So I'll let you get in the numbers, but I will point you to his launch angle sweet spot and squared up percentage. Because I'm thinking, maybe he doesn't have, I think he does have pretty good natural power, but maybe he's not able to graze the ball and get all the power like maybe some other guys could. Maybe his natural raw power, it does still require. I'm getting bogged down in terminology here. He needs to hit the ball in the better part of the bat is what I might guess.
All right, so. Yeah. I'm gonna be unbiased when I talk about this, because I've let the emotions out already. What you're saying basically is he's not making the kind of quality contact to really tap into his power, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, Doc, these numbers, they show that. Like, I'm gonna start off right away. Okay, so average age. So the players we're talking about, the Jacksons, right? The 4 Jacksons. Yeah. Jackson Cheerio, Jackson Holiday, Jackson Merrill, I guess the 3 Jacksons. James Wood, Jordan Walker, because he was in the original tweet, and then Wyatt Langford. So as I read it, those are the ages. Cheerio's 20, he has a March birthday. Holiday's 20, has a December birthday. Merrill is 21, has a March birthday. Wood, 21, has a September birthday, so he'll be 22. Jordan Walker is 22, has an April birthday, and Langford is 22, has a November birthday. So Langford is the oldest. Now, the first one that comes up that plays right into what you were talking about is the barrel percentage. Langford is second to last. It goes Holiday, whose numbers in all of this is so off the wall because he's had such different splits from the first time he was up, but bear with us. Barrel percentage, Holiday to 18.2%. James Wood at 12.9. Merrill comes in at 3 at 9.9. Walker is at 11.9 in 2024, 7.5 in 2023. That's an 8.1 career. Walker is currently at AAA and struggling mightily. Number 5 is Wyatt Langford at 6.7, and then Cheerio at 6.5. And Doc, when we read some of these numbers, Churio and Langford are eerily close in a lot of things. Churio is allowed to because of the age, allowed to, quote unquote. But I think both of them have the same problem. They just haven't tapped into their power. That's my takeaway really for both of their profiles. We're seeing Churio do it more, but he just went hitless this weekend. Do you want me to move on to the next tier of stats?
Well, I just want to say off the top, I mean, you keep moving back to his age. He's 22, right? So Gunnar Henderson's ruined 22 for us. Jackson Churio is about to, and Holiday are about to ruin 20. You know, it's like the expectations are all over the place here. And of course, we had high expectations of Langford, but that doesn't mean that's the model, that's the guaranteed model. We look, you know, what did we do? We talked earlier this year about 25-year-old breakouts. I don't think that's what we're looking at for Langford. I don't think it's going to take that long for him to be more consistent. You can look at the Rangers in general right now, and they're just like in a weird spot. I'll tell you what he's flashing, you know, that we maybe it's worth pointing out, and people don't really know this. He's got a 98th percentile sprint speed.
Yep.
What? You would not think that when you think of Wyatt Langford, right? So that's interesting because he's starting to run more. And I saw he had another steal the other day, and I saw it. I was watching the game. He could have had 2 steals in one game, but it was a called ball 4. I'm not even sure if it was really a ball 4. So it's like when that happened, I was like, well, good. I want the Rangers to beat the Yankees, but you know, I also want that steal for my fantasy team. So let's go, guys. So point being that the Rangers, the more they struggle to hit, in the past it made less sense to run because your bats were so good. Why would you risk it?
Why would you run yourself out of runs?
Yeah. So these days, though, they're going to have to manufacture runs if they're going to keep sucking. Now you're seeing Adolis run again. You're seeing Langford, dude, use that speed, and all of a sudden, now we can have more patience. You know, with the power, with him hitting
if he's
the ball.
providing stolen
if he's
bases.
providing external, you know, and he needs to keep getting on base the way he was this week. He was fantastic this week. So that's what I would say.
Well, no, and I'm in agreement with you, and that's a frustrating point for me as well. I think I mentioned that somewhere, which is, you know, he has this 98, 99 percentile sprint speed, but where are the stolen bases? And it's like, well, Bochy's always been a guy that's a little more conservative. Like, yes, it's frustrating because he does have a skill that is elite, but he's not allowed to use it, or he's not using it. And, you know, we've seen this with elite talent before, or even just regular talent. In the early 20s is the time when you're going to steal those bases. Usually those bases that you've stolen are going to fall off as you get closer to 30. That's just how we've seen trends. And it's like, well, you're right. He could supplement that power and even that batting average with speed if he could really use it. We're seeing Ellie De La Cruz do that, but he's not being allowed to at an elite level. That's making a huge impact, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm going to mention something after I mention this, because we're going to talk about a player today that I think plays in perfectly with the narrative that you're talking about, actually a little more aggressively too, because he's a different profile player. Average exit velocity, Langford comes in last, unfortunately. James Wood is at first at 94.8. Jordan Walker, 91.7 in 2024. 89.4, which is a better representation in 2023. Jackson Holiday comes in at 3 at 90.1. Merrill at 89.9 is at 4. Churio 89.1 at 5, and Langford at 88.9. So the average exit velo is something that is really important to me, because I look at that as my number one indicator. And I do think barrel matters. I think that's great that you brought that up, but Langford coming in last does concern me. Now, to kind of help your argument, we're going to talk about Ketel Marte later today. At 23 years old, this was in 2017, Ketel Marte's average exit velocity was 87.5. So this year, 93.7, it plays right into what you were saying, which is growth with the hard hit rates can absolutely happen.
Yeah, man. I mean, and I would also point out, this is a weird one. This is kind of a personal theory here. It sounds almost counterintuitive. You go to college, you expect to be more polished coming out, and I think you are. You definitely are compared to a high schooler, of course, an 18-year-old. But think about it this way. An 18-year-old who goes into a professional organization at the MLB level, you know, and they are just basically given so much more development, so much better development than a college could give you, from what I could tell. Depending on the organization, I would guess.
Yeah, because they're polishing the diamond earlier, right?
Which is what I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
right? So it's almost like by the time that like Jackson Merrill turns 20, as this, you know, this high school prospect, right? On the flip side, you have Langford. This is actually him just like he just got drafted last year, and he didn't actually get any time. He got like a month of professional training at
I
the
want
end.
to say it was like 30, 35 games if I remember
Yeah, it
correctly.
wasn't a whole lot. So he actually, in that way, he literally has almost 2 years less seasoning than a 20-year-old prep draftee. In terms of the professional experience, Jackson Merrill has much more professional experience.
44 games last year.
Yeah, like a guy like Jackson Merrill has much more James Wood has much more professional experience, which is doesn't sound right.
Doc,
right?
Doc, honestly, every one of these players, because I just happened to pick the rookies, he is the only college name on this list that we're talking about, which
I picked up on
isn't
that.
on purpose. It's just how it is.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's Ross Jensen, our guy. He's extremely anti-college player, possibly for this reason.
Yeah.
And this is my thing though. I think that's like college guys, if they don't, Langford's got such hype in it, so everyone knows who he is. I don't think we're gonna forget about him. But like a guy, that's how you get the 25, 26-year-old breakouts, quote unquote, out of nowhere, right? It's guys who were pretty elite in college a lot of the time, and then just took a little bit.
Brett Rooker.
Yep, just took a little bit of time to marinate. A little time to marinate. Man, I think we'll talk about Rooker later. I think he's legit.
Yeah, well, and he's 20. He's Doc. I think he's 28, 29.
29.
Like, yeah, but he's the perfect player that fits your role. Where it's like, oh, high draft pick, took a little while, figured it out, and is mashing. I hope Langford doesn't take till he's 29.
I don't think so, man. I mean, he's the nice thing is you look for flashes. You don't find like I remember that's how I landed Justin Steele basically everywhere. Was I saw him like throwing like he was inconsistent early on and right before his breakout. He would have a game 10 strikeouts and like no walks. Like whoa what like if you can do that once and okay then you did like okay now you did it 4 games later now. Having some rough games in between, but when you're flashing like that with a hitter, it's more constant. When you're flashing a week here, a week there, all you got to do is start putting those weeks together, which sounds easy when you put it that way.
Yeah, but to your point, like we're taking bets on players that have never flashed it, and we saw the flash with Wyatt Langford's cycle. Like I know he has great talent in him. My frustration is the lack of, again, like altering talent, because I think all of these names outside of Langford have shown that there is potential franchise altering talent. And even with Jordan Walker, which that's a whole different conversation about what St. Louis has done to him. But I believe in him. Mm-hmm. Him and Langford to me are almost equal, honestly. But the difference is Langford's in the major leagues and Jordan Walker is just dying at AAA. His prospect value is dying at AAA.
Well, I'm gonna tell you 2 things. One thing, I want to talk about Jordan Walker, but first of all, let's think of a guy like Alec Burleson, because I can never stop talking about him. He's the hitting.
Burleson's what, 26?
He's 25. He's actually younger than we think he is. Seems like he's been around forever. So his squared up percentage is his number one thing, basically, other than not striking out. Doesn't strike out, doesn't walk, which is why he's polarizing in OBP. Yep. 89% though percentile squared up percentage, and he has a pretty decent sweet spot. His EVs are ticking up a little bit, it looks like, but they're 89.8 now, almost 90. But they were, I think, like a month ago, they were 88. He was still hitting home runs. This is the interesting thing. So then you look over at Langford. This is not the same profile. Langford has way better. He likes to take a walk. He likes to wait for his pitch. But Langford is not hitting that ball in the right spot the way that Burleson is. Yet their EVs are kind of similar. What that says to me, again, is just that like what happens if this is not a guy who's never flashed the ability to hit a baseball. We're not asking for him to develop a hit tool. We're asking him to develop it further at the major league level to get to what he has flashed in the past, whether it be a weekly basis in the bigs or over just fairly large sample sizes if you combine college and minor league and spring training careers. These are still human beings who are throwing pretty darn good stuff, in general. So I'm excited to see what Langford can do. I will tell you said twice now. You helped me. I'm going to help you. Jordan Walker, you look at his numbers. I don't know if Ryan Ludwig is this, or Ludwig, I forget, but it's a former MLB player. He's the guy who told Victor Scott to change his stance up. I don't know if he talked to Jordan Walker too. My first thought was he should, hey, let's get you talking to Walker. Look at Walker's stats the last week. that last couple weeks even. He's starting to. Last month, I think he's got like a 300 batting average
Well,
with 5 home runs.
and this is what, like, I think they messed with his head, Doc. Because if you actually look at his numbers last year, they're pretty good. Like his
They are good.
barrel, like I said, 7.5, his max exit velocity 114.3, his average exit velocity 89.4, his XBA, his X slug, his X WOBA, his expected WOBA, all good. And then
Forget
he
about
has
all that nerd stuff, bro. He had a 274 batting average, and he
yeah,
hit 16 home runs, like a
it's a
small,
good
like
for a 21-year-old. Like,
yeah, he actually it actually led to real production too. Like he
and
actually
then
did things. Yeah.
67 at bats this year, awful. Like, there's nothing I can say about that to make it awful.
Yeah.
But they demote him and they never give him a second shot. And it's like, well, Jackson Holiday was just as bad, younger,
Mm-hmm.
right? A year younger at his debut than Jordan was,
Mm-hmm.
but they had to have messed with his swing. They like, there's nothing else that tells me, because his launch angle was 10.2 last year and the short sample size he had this year was 12.8. So that was something they definitely wanted to work on. James Wood has a like almost a 0-0 launch angle, and yet he's at the major league level. I don't know what St. Louis had him do. So I hope you're right. I hope Ludwig got to him and can help him too, because we know by the data he can be an elite player.
Yeah, Ludwig is his name. I could have sworn I owned him. I feel like he had some good flashes.
He was a righty batter, lefty thrower, if I remember correctly.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a very odd thing to remember, but I'm gonna look that up right now.
Yeah. So he had 26 home runs in 2012. So I was playing fantasy baseball back then. So I certainly he was up. Wow, he had a big year in 2008. I was playing then even.
He was a lefty righty.
He had
one of those
37
weirdos.
bombs in 2008, man. He had MVP votes.
That's our big time numbers. Votes. Yeah, a 966 OPS. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna get us back on track here real quick. We're gonna blow through the rest of the segment. I'm gonna read off these numbers just so that we can have them read. Anyone that wants to have this debate can go on Twitter and also find these numbers. Langford does come in with a positive max exit velocity. He ranks second. Walker at 114.4, and then Langford at 111.9. Merrill and Wood are tied at 111.6. Fourth is Churio at 111.2. Holiday at 109.2. Expected batting average, Merrill comes in at 299. Langford comes in fifth with a 252. Expected slug, Merrill also comes in first with a 0.515. Langford comes in last with a exactly league average 405. WOBA, Wood comes in at 344, Merrill at 343. Langford is fifth at 298. League average is 316. Last one I'll mention is hard hit. Langford also comes in second last here. Wood's at 57.6%, an incredible elite number there. But again, his launch angle is horrendous. Jackson Holiday at 50%, Churio at 44.8, Merrill at 4 at 43.4. And then we have Langford at 42.3. Jordan Walker is last at hard hit percentage, 42.2. Doc, real quick before we move on, I think with all of this that I take away, it's actually Jackson Merrill has some really great consistency that he's showing in these numbers. And secondly, James Wood could be an absolute monster if he can get the ball in the air.
Yeah, so I mean, a couple things is that with all these expected stats, these savant stats, it's important to remember that it's not necessarily actually, it is a prediction of the future, but it's based on what he's done already. So, if and that sounds simple. It sounds, it makes sense. No, yeah, like so I keep coming back to one little alteration though. Well, now you have to factor that in. The numbers, the formula doesn't have that factored in, that he made a switch, and now and this one hot week won't necessarily change the whole formula.
Yeah, and Holiday's a perfect. Yeah, I was just gonna say Holiday's a perfect example of that. Like, I didn't break this up for Holiday's second call up and first call up, but like if we looked at those two differences, Holiday would probably be first on everything, and he'd probably be last on everything, or first on, you know what I mean? Like he was so terrible, and he's been so strong.
And I think your original debate of like Langford versus Walker, I think the biggest thing to remember is that even if, like, I honestly thought you were going to talk about how Walker's been looking good in the minors. It's like, here's the thing: no matter what we say, it could be the Cardinals, dude. It could. Let's just be honest. It could be Walker. He could be in his own head.
Yeah.
At some point, it's you, right? At some point, you can be a man, and you can say, "This is not working for me." You can even go for outside help. Get a buddy. Get whatever. Do what you got to do. You have to take responsibility for your development at some point, whether it's during this season or it's through the off season, whatever. It's your career, man, and the team will eventually trade you or cut you loose if you don't perform. So even if you think it's them, like you got to figure it out. And Wyatt Langford, as much as he's been pretty mid for fantasy just because of the ups and downs, he's still maintaining a spot, like a pretty decent role for the Rangers, which kind of tells you where the Rangers are at. But clearly he's doing enough and he's showing enough um, that they're trusting him. So
Yeah.
that's in that alone in his rookie year for them to trust him, and they want to make him even higher. They want to make him, they're regularly the 3 and 4 hitter. So we'll see if he can get there by season's end.
Well, and I commend the Rangers for doing this because while he hasn't had a stretch where he's been as bad as Jackson was to start his debut, he also hasn't had as good of a performance as Jackson has had this past week.
Yeah.
They've given him a shot to develop at the pro level. And this was a year where easily I think they could have sent him down where they were trying to save games or win a game here or there because of their injury issues. They said, no, we are going to continue his development. Again, we talked about it last week or 2 weeks ago, how that injury he had probably helped. But I commend them for allowing a rookie to develop at the major league level. This was never my intention to say that I don't think he's going to be a major leaguer or even a good major leaguer. I think he's going to be above average, but I think he's more closer to what I've seen this year, an average player, than worth the 1-1 pick. And that's where this entire debate for me came up. But lastly, before we move on to our meat of the show today, you're right. Jordan Walker is destroying it. 349 average, 5 home runs, 9 strikeouts to 4 walks. I mean, you look at July, June, May, April, didn't hit over 271. And I mean, in April, he batted 175. It was really bad. So definitely something interesting to monitor. I think Jordan Walker, for me, again, if I'm going to be doing a dynasty ranking, him and Langford probably come very similar for me personally. I prefer power over speed, but as you talked about, 98th percentile sprint speed for Langford is something that Walker just can't match. And that's a skill that Langford will carry. Okay, Doc. That debate is over. It is time to get into the rest of his show. I'm gonna let you decide. Do you want to talk about some of the breakout players and the sample size first, or would you like to talk about our 30-man draft that we are currently doing?
I'm gonna fuse it for you because
Okay.
I'm up in one pick.
Oh, okay. What are you looking at?
So just for our listeners, for our viewers, 30 teams, best ball. That means basically you pick like 60 guys, and I'm just going to give you a number. Basically, your top 12 pitchers. I know it is top 12 pitchers, and roughly your top 20 bats. You don't make any ads or drops all year, I believe. You basically just have to sit with this team, and let's just say you got 12.
We could technically have 12 first basemen, right?
I believe so.
Okay.
No. There's a limit on how many. You can have 10. I think there are positional limits on how many you can roster. But regardless, that's neither here nor there. Let's just say you have 20 pitchers, and 8 of them bust, and 12 of them play really well. Guess what? You don't have to worry about the benching guys. It automatically scores your best 12 pitchers that night. So this is just like, assuming they're all, that's a whole lot of assuming. But that's what we're doing here. It's a dynasty. There's points involved. Oh, it's on me. That beautiful sound just happened. So we're gonna see it live. There. So far I've picked. I don't want to bore them too much, but at a 30-teamer, keep in mind, we are starting scoring next year, I believe. Yeah. So it's very interesting, right?
Well, I thought we were backtracking scoring.
I have no idea.
My understanding was like this is a 2024 and 2025 season.
I don't think we're going to be done until the World Series, though, so it doesn't make any sense. Anyway, so, folks, we don't want to lose the folks here. So, Jackson Holliday, first-round pick, 20th overall. I think that's crazy value. I think he's going to be I don't know crazy value, actually. It's pretty high price.
But also for the listener, like, Doc took him, I think, at the very last moment before the hype train started back up. I think everyone was kind of like tentatively like, oh, I don't know if this is real. And then like Doc took him and he hit another home run and it was like, okay, he's legit.
Yeah. This was a while ago. So this is, like right after the first like 1, maybe 2 homers, and then he hit like 4 more right after. So very happy he got him, after, right after Mookie Betts. So obviously, what you're going to get there. How many more years, right? Pretty kind of easy decision. Right before C.J. Abrams, I feel like there was a bit of a drop-off there. So anyway, Cole Ray
Nolan
next.
Jones. No.
Listen to me. Listen, Jackson Holiday, Cole Reagans, who's a stud. Justin Steele. I'm just gonna get Justin Steele everywhere because nobody believes he's a stud, and he's a stud. I'm gonna get mad. And you'll love this one, Brent Rooker.
Yeah, I love that pick.
Gonna hit 300 home runs next year.
Yeah, you stole him. Yep.
Gonna break Barry Bonds' career record in one season. Whatever, Samuel Basayo next. I think I like that one. I mean, people were picking weird prospects, dude.
I like your next pick more than the one you just took. But
okay, good.
having
so you
having both of them.
JJ Weatherholt, right? If I did take him?
I took Bazana because I want to take Weather. No, I'm just saying, like, he absolutely would have been on my team if you didn't take him. But I did take Bazana a little bit earlier because I'm not going to have Bazana anywhere else.
Okay, yeah, that was my thinking. So, folks, I guess let's try to, if you want to relate with us here, if you know that I like Max Clark. I love Max Clark. I'm the highest guy in the whole industry on Max Clark. Facts. Other than some crazy Tigers fans. JJ, I'm not even a Tiger fan. JJ Weatherholt, though, I do like to watch the Cardinals quite a bit. And I like him as a person, and I love what he's doing with these EVs right now. And, that's something where Max Clark, he's going to take more time to get.
Yeah, more time.
Will he ever get that power? We don't know for sure. I think he's going to get tons of steals, get on base. He's going to hit a lot. Max Clark's a stud, but I have him everywhere. And I was like, can I go Weatherholt or do I go Clark? And I'm like, I don't want to risk not having a share of Weatherholt. So I'm glad that you're telling me I wouldn't have got him back because I'm still seeing a couple guys from this year's draft. Cags and
Christian Moore.
Yeah, well, no, he just got taken. And Kurtz, Kurtz is on the board too. So I'm planting seeds in your head now.
I'll tell you, my queue has. I'm going to take a crazy one, Doc. My queue's got, I think, Seth Lugo in it if he's still available.
Yeah, no, not my guy. I'm taking a pitcher probably. That's where I'm getting to here. And then you hated. But Weatherholt, yeah, I think he's going to be. I'm getting really good vibes, guys. So if anyone's paying attention, I know it's kind of weird. Sometimes it can be boring hearing about other leagues. What you want to take away from this is what are Matt and I valuing guys at. So there's some certain silly things like, I don't have them in a league. Forget about that. Genuinely, though, the fact that I think Max Clark and Weatherholt are close, I'm learning about my own rankings in my head. That's how it works. When I do my rankings, I don't go in there like, this is what it's going to be. I have to figure out what I actually think. I have to figure out what my own rankings are.
Well,
that's probably what everyone is doing.
And I think Weatherholt's going to be one of the first players that you and I have agreed on now, now that we're doing the podcast, because we both like Victor Scott, but I had Weatherholt is still my 1-1 in this draft coming out of the draft. And you're starting to see what I was really hoping to be his upside, because I think from him and Bazana, I believe he's going to have more raw power. I don't know if it translates, but I saw an amazing gap shot from him the other day, and I'm like, God, he has pop. Whereas Bazana, he's got pop, but like, will it translate? And the athletic ability of Weatherholt, like how do you just root against him? He's awesome.
Well, he comes out wearing the cowboy gear.
Yeah, dude.
I love Jesus Christ. I'm like, dude, same. And it's like,
I'm in. Yes.
And I'm like, I don't even care if he's good. I'm just gonna root, And no, but then it turns out he's actually really good. So what you'll love this. All the geek stats at home. I think he's actually this is not sustainable, obviously, folks. I think his average EV right now in A ball, which he apparently does not need to be in, 99. I think it's 99 miles per hour is his average EVs right now. Average.
Only 8 hits, but yes.
But I mean, that's crazy.
Yes.
And he's lacing them over 100 all the time. Like he's looking like he's got lots of power.
I want to ask you a question, but get to your last pick, and then I'll ask you the question.
So you hated Nolan Jones, dude. Nolan Jones, look where he went.
I know.
He's going after guys like Felix Bautista, who's like a reliever coming back from TJ. I love when they make weird picks like that. I'm like, he's not on my radar, bro. He could be sick next year for the Orioles. Probably actually a good pick. I'm walking that back.
It is a good pick. You're banking on bounce back. They're banking on health and opportunity.
Yeah, and like the guy, you probably hate that Christian Moore goes right after me, but I think here's the thing: Nolan Jones, man, it's like. We're forgetting about him. It's not like he necessarily was. He started off the year pretty atrocious, but it's really annoying for me because he was starting the year poorly, but in frigid weather in Colorado, and then he immediately got hurt and has essentially never stopped getting hurt since. And every time he's been getting hurt, he has been just starting to ramp up some momentum, getting on base a bunch, stealing some bases. And so I don't know. And with this best ball format. I don't really have to worry about it being consistent actually either. So I know I'll get those bunches of hot streaks from him, which is, I'm not sure if that's maybe the way to look at it. But I just, going from this guy who we all accepted to be more or less a top 20 pick, a top 50 pick in redrafts this year, roughly speaking,
Yeah.
roughly a top 50, 60 pick. So now he fell to, I don't know what the math is.
I'm
on
doing
that.
the math right now. 180. He went to about 200. This is
That's
about
crazy.
200.
That's too much value. I had to take him. Maybe I should have taken Kyle Bradish. I don't know. But yeah, I wanted Bradish on this next pick here. So
I mean,
folks,
this is the problem with the way we're doing the draft, because the way I read it was 2024 stats for the entire season from April till September count. So we're, if I'm correct, we're back drafting. So like, just because we're drafting them today, their points from the beginning of the season still actually catch up.
we're gonna lose our listeners if we debate about this weird,
Okay.
super nerdy.
So you're right.
You're
Right.
welcome, viewers.
My next question for you then, Christian Moore going right after Nolan Jones. We just talked about Langford and my frustration, right?
Yeah.
What Moore is doing is equally as impressive, if not more impressive. We'll see. We have rest of season to see this, to what Langford did last year. How high do you think people are willing to rank him going into the offseason? Do you think we've learned a little bit and we've tempered expectations from Langford? Or do you think if Moore ends up with 12 to 14 home runs, that he's a top 5, if not 1 prospect in rankings?
Gonna be hard to kill the name value of Bazana. I would say Condon has the most to lose because people are ready to move off a guy like that if he's striking out too much, or like, if they can think in their head that the Rockies can't develop him properly.
And he's showing good gap power right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm just saying he has the most to lose. Weatherholt's, I would say Weatherholt and Moore are the hottest guys. I think there is a weird thing. I know for me, I don't trust the Angels. So I trust them to get, if you want a guy who's going to contribute almost immediately, probably this September, frankly. You keep this up. And that might be as big as hurdle, is just not having his development messed up by being too good too soon. It's such a weird way to think about it. This guy picked Shanuel too. I wonder if he's an Angels fan.
Well, Shanuel also, all of his metrics have been trending up over the last month. He's starting to catch on, and that's what you said about Langford. We got to give these guys some time. Well, I mean, it's been almost a full year now for Shanuel with when they called him up last year.
Yeah. So this is a weird league. So this is fun. I guess we're morphing this episode. I think we might as well keep it on this track of like how to, what do you do when you're building a startup dynasty, right? And because we're very prospect heavy in this episode, this is the thing. This is the big thing I've been wrestling with, and still wrestling with in this moment. My picks are informing my strategy all of a sudden, but do you go for the instant rebuild, the instant, like, I'm picking all the kids, like Chris Knock is picking like 17 and 18.
Knock has all of the kids, yeah.
I'm like, all right, well, I guess you're out, And then other guys, I can tell pretty much, I can't tell if they don't know prospects. A lot of these guys are industry guys, but there's a handful of randoms. I don't know if they're just like fans of podcasts or whatever, which is cool. I'm happy to have a mix. But they're going with a lot of established guys. That's smart, because you're getting an MLB player instead of guessing that you might. That's kind of what we're doing with the elite prospects. And so then now we have to look at the teams we're building, and maybe we'll look at yours in a second in terms of just who you got. So I'm looking Holiday. So he's in the bigs, but super young,
and showing that elite production, right?
We also have to remember, folks, this is a points league. Funny enough, I did all these mocks with Scott White which is actually what educated me on points leagues. But even then, the format changes everything. This format's different. I'm not going to get into the weeds again and bore you, but you have to know what your like. Does your league?
You have to know your league.
This league does not knock you for strikeouts, but it does give you points for walks. So you still want to keep OBP in mind. Pitching is usually pretty heavy. Pitching.
And with what you just said, a player like Schwarber, who in points is traditionally not elite, can be elite in this league because of the strikeout being taken away.
Mm-hmm. And you got walks.
That's a massive boost, and that's actually something I wish I would have actually known, because I would have taken Schwarber instead of a player that I took. But Schwarber went 3rd round, 13th overall, so he ended up going 73rd off the board.
So he went pretty fast. I would say that. So looking at my team without going over every single person again, I made 3 of my guys. I keep forgetting how young Reagan's is. He's still pretty young. Steele and Rooker are 29. So. And I intentionally picked Basayo. I was kind of surprised that he was still there. I'm like, I think he's a top 3. Is Basayo not a universal top 3 prospect right now? And he's 19, and he's at look what he's doing at Double A.
No. I know. I don't think universal yet because there's so much questions about positionally. When is he up? Where does he play? I think if you put Samuel Basayo in the Milwaukee Brewers organization, the guy's probably a top 3 overall prospect because everyone's like, he's going to play first base tomorrow. But the Orioles,
I mean, yeah, it doesn't seem like they want to trade him, and so
no, most definitely.
they're going to get him up there at some way or another if he shows he deserves it. And when he does, doesn't even matter who's on the team, who's going to be there. You're going to have all these guys still. You're going to have Holiday. You're going to have Gunner.
Yeah, it's going to be a great lineup.
So many. This is everything. This was the big thing about Langford is that I thought he was super safe because even if he didn't hit for crazy power or something like that, like he's not doing, I'm like, oh well, the counting stats will just go be there because of this elite lineup. Now that elite lineup hasn't been producing this year, so that's not really helped out as much. He's still doing okay, but yeah, with the Orioles, we're seeing Jackson Holiday run, RBI, and he's actually not. He actually isn't hitting as well. He's starting to slump a little bit, like not slump, but he's not hitting. It's a really weird thing. We thought that Holiday was going to come up here just be like a nice,
3 to 4, 3 for 4, 2 to 4, home run once,
now he's
maybe
going
every
like
week and a
1
half.
for 4, grand slam, 1 for 4, big bomb. I'm like, okay, I guess that's who he is.
He's selling off for power, yeah.
And I did say, I didn't think it'd be this year. I did say I can see 2 Holidays. I can see him being like who we think he's going to be, this kind of like 2020 guy, or I can see him being Matt's son, which is just this guy who tries to build his body for power. He looks like he's. You see his forearms?
Yeah, he got significantly bigger from the FYPD first year, the year he got taken out of high school, to coming into camp last year. It was like, oh, and that was where I thought to myself, there's developmental body growth here in this player.
Yeah.
Like this kid's not done growing, and that's something that I like. Yeah,
we know his dad.
Well, and look at his brother. His brother's probably already bigger than Jackson is, and that's comparable. But like, his brother definitely got more of the bigger frame in his overall projection. Okay,
that might help us because that keeps him at second base, which is really nice.
While I talk about my team, why don't you take your player?
Okay, so that's what I was going to walk into here. I was leading us into who have I picked. Okay, I got a couple prospects, but they're somewhat on the verge. I think they either going to. So I think actually Basayo and Weatherholt are my only in the minors prospects now, and so I'm leading into my pick here.
And both should be up next year.
I think they should both be up by September.
2026.
By September of next year, they'll get a cup of coffee. Weatherholt, if he does crazy stuff, who knows? Maybe sooner. Nolan Jones will be hopefully healthy next year. Okay, so I want to think about next year. I only have 2 pitchers, and this is a 30-team league. So you and I have an advantage of being in a 30-team league. We know that there's only so many starting pitchers to go around. Okay, so who do you have on the board? You got Seth Mack. I should take Seth Lugo. Should just ruin Matt's life.
You would ruin it, yeah.
I mean, honestly, Blanco's been pretty sick. He's not going to be my guy here. I mean, Blanco is not a terrible choice at all, actually. Do you think he's legit? Before I make my pick, do you think Blanco's legit?
Honestly, I before I take Blanco, I'd take Brady Singer. I'm looking at the board right now. I like Brady Singer over Blanco.
I think I know who I'm picking. I'm pretty
who are you taking? Reese Olson's out there.
Yes, Reese Olson. Yep.
Yeah.
The last 30 days we're seeing some Blanco regression. I wasn't sure about him. Okay.
Well, and what scares me is you look at the development from Houston with their international Latin signings. Christian Javier. I'm gonna embarrass myself now, but the kid that just had Tommy John, Urquidy. You also have Valdez, who has worked, right? We're talking about a guy that almost threw another no-hitter this past 2 weeks ago or whatever. Like, they've done well, but they've also missed. And I just think that Blanco could be a very similar case to Javier, where it's like his best season was his intro debut, where we all found value in his fantasy stock.
So yeah, before I push the button here, the beautiful sound it's going to make, I will say things like this. Reese Olson. It's a weird situation. So he started off so hot. People didn't really want to believe. And then he just started making them have to believe. And then he had three really bad starts, or pretty bad starts. And everyone's like, a mirage. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. And I had a little bit of doubts, but I'm like, okay, let's see. Because he had flashed at the end of last season as well. And then he started doing really well again. I'm like, yes, he's about to build up so much value. He's about to become a fantasy SP2 or maybe even fantasy ace. You know, he's not going to be a real life ace over Scooble, but you know.
All right, because I consider you a friend, I am going to give you one more name to consider, and he is actually at the top of my queue. Okay, don't hit the button yet. So Shane Bieber is also still out there. Is there any interest for you to take Bieber over Olsen, or you believe Olsen?
No, so I believe in Olsen, man. I'm an Olsen
Okay.
guy. I'm going to break Drew Klein's heart. He's definitely wanting him to fall right now. That's 100%. 100% guaranteed. Tiger fan.
You did like Olsen.
And we had Drew on here, and we both, talked about our love for Olsen. So, and this is good, folks. So you know, I'm not just hyping a guy up. I go after him.
Yeah, you got money on him.
Yeah, and he's been on my in my queue for a while now. So Olsen, folks, he's hurt right now. And I kind of like this. I hate that he went down with a shoulder strain. I don't like that. But you know who's done that a couple times, or had like a couple injuries that we thought are going to be very serious, but then they weren't? Justin Steele. He seems to be doing the tightrope. He's done this a couple times the last couple of years. I don't know, and I'm starting to wonder: is this a good thing? Like, and you don't obviously you want them to be healthy, but some guys, you see forearm, shoulder, like whatever, they're TJ. It's done. Like that's just their body's not. Is this a thing? Is this a Justin Steele? Can Reese Olsen looks like he's going to come back and pitch?
There's definitely a vibe to it where it just feels like it's okay.
Like they can fight through pain better, or their bodies bounce back better. I don't know, but Reese Olsen, gosh, I hyped up myself in this podcast. Let's do your team, man. Let's go talk about your strategy.
What's going to be great is any of the people that actually listen to our show today that are in this league, we're probably also watching you being on the clock in the draft room, not picking for 15 minutes as we recorded, which is not your fault. But I think they'll probably laugh at us and make fun. So I took Judge 1-8. So 8th overall, I took Judge, 30 years old. I thought about Skeens really, really, really hard because of the 30-man aspect. But I just thought over the next 3 to 4 years, it's going to be hard for anybody to surpass Judge in a points league other than Ohtani. Like, it just made sense for me to take the best available player at his peak today. I went Judge, and I didn't go with a youngster. I decided to stick with that second round. I took Frankie Lindor. He's had a good season. I think he's he's 30 years old as well. He's in the prime. And then I went prospect heavy with FYPD players. I took Condon, 3rd round, and then I took Bazana 4th round. I wanted some shares of them. I believe in both of them. Again, we had that Weatherholt Bazana conversation. I'm going to take Weatherholt and FYPDs this year. I'm not going to be able to get Bazana because I just think Bazana is going to be taken first, whereas Weatherholt is not as valued.
You were freaking me out there. You were the one to break the dam with the FYPD guys. That's why I put Weatherholt way up further than I thought I would have to, and then also he was playing too well. He's getting the headlines, right? And I did the honorable thing. I didn't want to do it, but I hyped him up on my own thing. A lot of guys in this league are following me. I couldn't believe that. I guess that I told them, I called them out. I said, you guys don't really respect my opinion, do you? Because a couple rounds went by after I started hyping up Weatherholt, and no one picked him. All right, I'll take them.
This is the thing. I like the value at 6'11" that you got for Weatherholt. You didn't have to invest your 3rd round pick like I did. I went big on these guys because I was looking at what was happening and I was like, damn, like our top 10 guys are going, and I need to have some prospects because I have faith that I took Chris Sale in the 5th round. Like Chris Sale might have 2 or 3 prime years left. I was cool with that. I was like, you know what? I'll find pitchers. I'll take a Mike Vassell from New York and, sit on him for a couple of years. I took Jordan Walker with our conversation that we had about Wyatt Langford on, what's the word I'm looking here? On, I can't think.
It's nice when the guy before you goes like Sal Frelick, like, oh yeah, I know who I'd rather have. Sal
Frelick went right after me. It was on that way of the loop. Okay. But what was interesting was I was debating between Jordan Walker and Mark Vientos. I took Walker because of those numbers that we talked about earlier, but I thought Vientos 6th round, 25th overall was actually a really good value as well. Kyle Harrison right after 627. That's a young starting pitcher that's flashed top 2 or 3 starting pitcher prospect pedigree.
And just to be clear, these are not your picks. These are
these are just guys that went after. Yeah. Like in the 6th round of a 30-man, there are still really good value picks. Spencer Arngetti, who's dominating right now with strikeouts and might be breaking out. We were going to talk about him today, but I think that's out the window.
Important to remember there will be 60 rounds. He's going to add 10 more rounds.
Okay.
For 60 rounds. So this is going to get greasy.
You weren't joking when you said we might be doing this until Christmas.
Yeah, we'll see.
But
I like your structure, man.
It's so hard to gauge in a startup 30 man. Should I or should I not? Right? Like you talked about it with Weatherholt. It's like, do I take him now or do I leave him? The reality is, I think you got great value. If you leave him on the board with the names that we're seeing in round 7 go off, you wouldn't have got him. Like he would have been gone. You took him at the perfect time, but trying to find that time is the real key of a balanced approach for a 30 man. Because you're right. Right now, starting pitchers, it's Seth Lugo, best available with points for this year. Jake Irving, Tyler Anderson, Brady Singer, Eric Fetty, Valdi. These are not names that you necessarily want to roster in Dynasty. I'm out here sitting with one starting pitcher. So you taking Reagans and you taking Steele allows your 3 now to be Reese Olson, which is way more respectable than if I took Olson as my 2.
Yeah, and I also think that it's a weird blend of, we know from our other 30 men that you need to invest in MLB players because straight up it can be a challenge to field a roster. Now it's nicer in this one, best ball. You can you don't have to. You can have it. You're going to automatically have a very deep bench of people, of players, but still, it's like if you go too prospect heavy, like when are you ever going to have a team? And it might be tricky to really get things going here. And are you, like you said, what's good enough? Chris Sale, 2 to 3 years. Aaron Judge, he's probably still got 5 solid years in him. People don't think like that when they see 30, 31, even 32.
They get scared. Yeah,
they get scared. It's like, well, when you're a generational talent, I'm not so scared. Look at Freddie Freeman. Now, I think I wouldn't be surprised in the next 3 years, he's going to be 40 by then.
Well, and he's already, I don't want to say slowing down. His profile is changing. Right? He's going from a guy that won MVP with power in 2020 to less power, really driving in the runs, really scoring the runs. I think
he broke his own. He had 20 stolen bases last year. He's changing. Like
that's all I'm saying. His profile is just changing. I think the days of Freddie Freeman hitting 30, 35 home runs are probably over, but that doesn't mean that his first round value is over.
Sure. Yeah. But point being, Aaron, and I guess you can look at it this way: Aaron Judge, even if Aaron Judge has a drop off in power, I mean, there may be concerns that because of that profile, like for example, Freddie Freeman just being an all fields pure hitter, he can probably keep the boring style for a long time. Whereas the Aaron Judge, if he loses too much of his power or too much of his ability to hit them out, like maybe he's just more of a just this pure slugger style instead of this guy who's able to give you a 400 plus OBP.
Yeah, no, I agree.
He's got a lot of runway to get worse in. He's playing so well right now.
I like this. This team took volume pitching, so they went Michael King, Flaherty, Schwellenbach. They went prospects, Zebby Matthews, and Bubba Chandler. That's gonna be a nice staff. But
their second round pick says bad words, so okay, we're not gonna touch it too much. We're not gonna touch it. Hey, folks, listen, we are trying to please you, so it's either the most offensive thing in the whole world or it's fine. We don't know. We're gonna let you decide. We don't know. But I just saw his name, Jaron Duran, folks. In case you didn't.
What a hell
if you don't know what happened,
social media it ruins lives.
So I will go on to say though, from an analysis though, it's such a weird dynamic. It's so weird, man. Because I feel like in my non 30-man leagues, pitching is
you can find it.
You can find it, and in this league. In 30-man leagues, I know hitting can be kind of what's hard to find.
And that's why I think like the debate for Skeens at 8 was, and I said it right.
It's tough.
It's like, but at 21, 22, 23 years old, do we really want to buy any of these kids? Back to the generational part. Last one I want to talk about here real quick until I get your last thoughts. Owen's draft. Owen took 30. This draft. I'm pretty sure Owen took 30.
Owen's not in this league, dude.
He's not?
No.
Oh.
I want him. He was invited, but I guess he didn't respond in time. The one time he wasn't online. He's usually online. We got Louis analysis and Ross.
Yeah, Louis is in. And Ross took Soto first, which I like a lot. Let's talk about Ross's team real quick. I also wasn't really sure why he took Roki because I was under the impression if they're not taken by a major league team, they have to bounce them off their roster, right?
But by the beginning of next season or something like
that.
And
he's not going to post.
He said, that's fine. He said, I'll take that risk. which is crazy.
I love it. Well, I love it, Ross. If you listen to this one, love the balls you move.
He wants to come back
Soto,
on the podcast soon, so we'll get him
let's get him
on.
on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Soto and Volpe. Volpe, whoa. Hey, I hope so. As a kind of pseudo Yankee fan, Roki Sasaki. Which, if Roki comes over, I think this was a great pick. If Roki doesn't come over with Kettle Marte coming in right after, because we were going to talk about Kettle today. His baseball savant is insane. But Roki could be and should be a top 15 SP, right?
Dude, if he doesn't sign, Ross has no starting pitchers. And
He has two closers.
Evan Carter has potentially career-long back issues. I love Evan Carter.
Man.
I hope that's not true, but that could be the place. And he picked friggin' Spencer Torkelson. Dude, this guy's team's going to be the best or the worst. There's nothing. Here's the thing. I know Ross, and so he'll come up with enough prospects to figure it out. But, yeah, I mean, he went high risk, high reward. It's not the way I would have done things.
But you know what? In a 30-man, I think you got to, right? Like,
not that much, but yeah.
But if you play it safe, you're just going to be middle of the pack forever. You either got to go high risk, high reward with major league players. You got to go high risk, high reward with the young guys like Knox doing. But I mean, look at my team. If Condon or Bazana don't hit, I'm screwed. I'm gonna be middle of the pack. Like, or I'm gonna be like 6 every year for the next 3 years as Judge carries me, but I have nothing else.
I want to say this. I almost forgot about it. We're over an hour now. Obviously, so next week we'll do we'll do the
75% of our outline we didn't get to.
Yeah, but this is like, something that I killed it last year in some leagues. Some leagues I have every good pitching prospect from last year's draft because A, people are scared of pitching prospects, and B, FYPD players, when you're drafting now, when you're drafting in the year they're drafted, so by next season, if you're drafting a brand new dynasty in February, March, I wouldn't really recommend that. But if you're doing it then, you're starting to see guys getting priced in better. But right now, a lot of ranks are out there, including my own, that don't have FYPD players ranked yet. So when you look up JJ Weatherholt dynasty rank, he's not in a lot of ranks yet. So people don't really know, and we don't have the data from there. We have a very small sample size, and some players are going to be completely held out. I think Chase Burns is not going to pitch this year. So what that means is you're taking more risk, but you can beat the market on some of these guys. I think if JJ Weatherholt, if we had a whole season, this whole whatever he does now, and all the hype he'll have heading up into next spring, I'm not getting him in the 6th round.
No.
But this is what I'm saying. So not these first bunch of guys, like Cags and Kurtz will go soon, but after that, it's gonna be like if there's any kind of gems in the FYPD, it'll be interesting to see where they go because it's hard to get a price reading on them right now, market-wise.
Well, and I think the perfect representation of that is you were a big Thomas White supporter this year, this offseason as well. Thomas White right now, if you look around Twitter and even some of the industry standards, people have him organizationally ranked ahead of Noble Meyer.
Yeah.
And how a year can change things, right? That was going to be our conversation today. We will save it for next week, but you had presented the concept that we now have enough data on the table to really evaluate some things, and people are feeling that way with Thomas White and Noble Meyer. Well, let's see where we are next August when both of them have taken another step forward. Maybe they flip-flop again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just for reference point, my top 100 is out with FYPD guys loosely. I need to make some adjustments, but I have Bazana at 5 overall, Condon at 6 overall. I have Weatherholt at 8 overall, and I have Basayo at 9 overall. So, both of us got 2 of the top 10 guys. And that's with Jackson Holiday and James Wood and Kobe Mayo all still in this ranking. So those guys are out. To your point, you got a top 5, you got 2 fringe top 5 overall guys as late as you did. That's the price baked in you're talking about. Like if we really did rankings right now with where Basayo has climbed because of the potential graduations in the next few days here, he's going to move up into that top 5 threshold that you kind of said, top 3, top 5. And you're right. Like right now is a discount. Yeah.
And I would also say that in a deep, I'm not sure how many of y'all are getting in a 20 or 30 man dynasty startup. So it's
fun.
Maybe it's not like something you're going to think about doing right away, but I would say in any deep-ish dynasty startup, you have to, when you're weighing out prospects, I started thinking about this. Like, there's so many prospects. Maybe I'll just wait and pick all these MLB guys. So because there's only going to be so many. Like I did take Weatherholt over Bellinger, which was kind of a tough one for me. I'm like, I know Bellinger's ceiling. His obvious lack of consistency is what kind of made me go the other way with it. But I think he was a great value. He went after Weatherholt in the 6th round. But what I was going to say is, I think what you have to do is pay the premium for the prospects with the least amount of risk.
Yep.
You know, and so in terms of like, if they're a top 5 draft pick in an MLB draft, you know, you have MLB GMs saying that they're less risky, that they're inherently more. There's a certain value, a certain pedigree to them that's worth picking that high. So you're reducing your risk. All prospects are risky, but like for example, Basayo, I said to myself, okay, well, there's a bunch of cool prospects, like a bunch of cool pitching prospects I like. We know all about pitching prospects, and that one bad throw, and all of a sudden we forget. They're flying down the rankings in the wrong direction. Basayo, I'm like, he's 19 years old at AA, and he's actually doing what he did last year, which as the season goes on, he's crushing the ball more. His last month has actually been unbelievable. Not really talked about. So funny. We get like mild prospect fatigue on these guys sometimes. Like Basayo, it's almost like, yeah, of course he's good. Then you look at it and what he's really doing, it's like, no, it's amazing. And the fact he's doing it at 19, at AA, frankly, he could get a promotion to AAA by the end of this season. That's unbelievable. And so for me, that take in a great organization that we have the track record, again, factors that are reducing prospect risk and while also increasing their reward. I'm like, nope, this is the spot to get Basayo. It sucks because I like Max Clark better. I'm just a sucker. I'm also, that is personal favoritism in terms of Indiana. But on my ranks, I still have Basayo ahead of Clark because I am honest. I'm not going to mislead the readers with my personal bias.
Yeah, well, and that was something I wanted to get into today too, but we just didn't happen to have that conversation, which was Wyatt Langford being passed up for Max Clark. And you look at the offseason and how people were like, oh my God, can you believe that they passed up on Wyatt Langford? It's like, well, now here we are in August, and it's like, okay.
Not as crazy,
right? And to your point of what you said, like major league GMs make this decision. Some of them make horrible decisions, the Angels usually. But most of them are in their roles and in their chairs for a reason. So again, I think you're the biggest proponent of this, and I love this, which is take a look at the signing bonus, right? That's your big thing, especially for the first year. Yep. And like, it's of course like Cooper Pratt from Milwaukee, right?
Yeah.
Eric Batanti from Milwaukee.
Took it out of my mouth. Yep.
Like when you talk about looking at the signing bonus, it's usually like, oh, I get why they're performing well. I get why they were drafted and overpaid. It's like, they're good players. They're players that were going to go to college, and a team had a relationship with them and said, well, if you pay us this much, we might not. And I was like, oh, okay. Doc, we're at an hour. You said it. Is there anything else before we say goodbye?
Man, I hope that, hey, if y'all listen to all this, first of all, you're our biggest fans.
You are. Yes.
But like, again, like, I'm trying to, we're not just sitting here, roster baiting and like, look how cool my team is. And frankly, it's going to get way more interesting. Like I said, we are not even 1/5 through this draft, and it's already getting kind of like, Joe Musgrove just went off the board after Reese Olson. And frankly, I don't believe in Musgrove anymore to stay healthy or to be reliable. So I'm not going to get into that analysis, but like, we're getting into like, oh, interesting picks. Torkelson's going off the board. These are not your favorite guys to draft anymore, and we're like I said, we're not even 1/6 through the draft yet. So it's going to be a long road ahead, and we'll have a lot of discussion about it, I'm sure. Having some guys on here, maybe we'll bring Chris Knock back on here since he made the league. But frankly, if you're going to get any benefit out of it, just appreciate that, we're going to be giving you a good example, a good insight, a good snapshot of how fast values can change.
Oh man, there's so many names I have in my queue. It's basically all pitchers because that's the fear. But I'm so curious to talk about these guys once the draft is over, because we're going to be competing here for a few. But yeah, man, I agree. 30 mans are fun. If you guys can get in some, jump in them. I'm sure that we'll probably do a league next year for the listeners. Probably not 30 because that's crazy, but it's crazy to manage. That is for us. But hey, man, that's all I got for us today. Anything else?
I'm your Huckleberry.
We will see you guys next week. Very nice.
Yeah, no, I think